91 Upper Street, St Giles. There's just a bit of office work to do to start with. Leonie, do you want to take us through the agenda to start with, please?
Yes, so the first item on the agenda is appointment of chair. Do I have a nomination for that?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Patrick.
Driver.
I was thinking I can't say Councillor Keith. I'd like to nominate Councillor Keith Driver, please.
Yeah.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So duly elected then, in the absence.
Thank you. You just heard my phone go off. I must apologise, but I'm going to keep it on. My wife is seriously ill in the hospital and I might get phone calls and so that's on, I'm afraid. Hopefully I don't ring for anyone else. Okay, we go through. As I said, the application is for 91A St Giles. Is there any declarations of interest, anyone? No? Thank you. I'd like to introduce the members. On my right is Councillor Claire Kidman. On my left is Councillor Leslie Graham. My name is Councillor Keith Driver. I'll be chairing today, as you heard. And our legal assistant is Florence Chambers Harry. And if you could introduce your other selves, who you are in line, I'll start with Maxine to start with.
Yeah, I'm the licensing advisor and licensing officer, and there's Maxine Fuller.
Thank you.
I'm Dennis Turan, I'm Project 5491.
Thank you.
My name is Gavin Tempest and I'm representing them.
Thank you.
So I'm Gita and I'm an injector and I live at Watkins Court.
Thank you.
Maybe I was going to use the microphone.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
No, that's all right. I know it's low, but yeah. But if you can use your microphones, that's a lot easier to hear.
Yeah, I was Dan Hyde from 89 on Bell Street.
Yeah. Can you use your microphone when you talk?
You lift this up and then you press the button, the green button, and you don't have to hold it down.
Can we do that again then?
Yes, please. If you just push the button, the light will come on.
Green on.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Dan Hyde from 89 Upper St Giles Street.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Mark Brown, 89 up St Giles Street.
Thank you very much. If we move on now, if Maxine, if you could take us through the application, please.
You need to press the green button as well to turn it off. Members are asked in accordance with the delegation of licensing functions contained in the Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, Licensing Act 2003, to consider the application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of 91 Upper St Giles Street, Norwich, NR2 1AB, following the receipt of relevant representation. It is recommended that members determine the application to grant the premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and subsequent regulations, guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy. The applicant is Upper Street Limited and the proposed DPS is Dennis Turan. The application seeks to allow the licensing activities, times and opening hours as set out in the application form, which is attached to Appendix A. This also includes the steps proposed to promote the licensing objectives, which is the operating schedule. Representation was received from the police and the applicant has agreed to the condition. A copy attached of this is at Appendix B. There was no other representation received from the other responsible authorities, although we've received one representation from a local resident. A copy is attached to Appendix C. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, that is to say the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all the parties, the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 National Guidance and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Grant the application as asked, modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, refuse to accept the proposed DPS. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representation received appears to relate to issues that fall under the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Any questions to the licensing officer? No? Thank you very much. Could you, just one, could you tell me if the premises is occupied at the moment and what use has been?
We haven't got a licence. Sorry.
Rachel, we couldn't hear you, sorry.
No, we haven't got a record that there is a licence already there or anything.
And the premises is...
We wouldn't be aware of what it's being used as.
Okay, fine, thank you. The applicant, if you could give a report, are you both speaking or just one?
Yeah, if it's okay, just for speed, I'll do the talking because we've just got some things that we wanted to say, mainly just to paint a picture of what this venue is and what's intended, what's around it and what's intended to be done there. Dennis is going to be here for questions, obviously, but I'll just go through this as quickly as possible, if that's all right. So Dennis is the owner, already an owner of a successful business in Norwich. That's Haggle, which is a high-quality Middle Eastern cuisine restaurant on St Benedict's Street. It's much bigger than the property at 91, but he's already operated for 5 years successfully there, and for the last 3 years or thereabouts, it's operated with an outdoor tables and chairs service on St Benedict's Street. Dennis owns the building at 91 Upper St Giles Street, so I could give you a bit of history of what it was and then what's intended to be done with it. So on Dennis' behalf, he would say this, but he very much admires the style and decor with which the previous owner refurbished the property, and that there is a picture of it which I'll refer to in a minute that embellishes the elements of its Grade 2 listed status. And the best way to probably describe, I understand you've got the photographs, the best way to describe this, what I think is a really lovely part of Norwich, is by referring to the photographs. And there are 3 that show the frontages of businesses along Upper St Giles. In the second photo, which is the one looking towards the city centre, you can see number 91.
Can I just stop you there, Gail, because we haven't got these photos.
I think they were circulated by email, Chair. Let me see, I'll print some out. Hang on.
Could I have a look at one, because I definitely never seen the email.
Yeah, that would be helpful if we could get.
As well, so
Because I think Anne's also submitted a photograph which we were going to refer to.
We haven't seen them either.
I was emailed a certain amount of photographs. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, it's just the pretty street of Upper St Giles, and yeah.
Okay.
I both of us also emailed back photographs from the aspect of 89 Upper St Giles and 21 Watney's Court.
Building that's actually operating as St Giles Pantry now?
No,
It's
actually the previous use was an art gallery. So on one side there's the bread source, which is a bakery and cafe, and on the other side there's another business. I'm not sure what that is, but the purpose of the 3 photographs was just to show what businesses are already there and the style of the operation. Fortunately, I do have 2 photographs, including the one that I can come and show you, which shows the back of the premises, but the purpose of the 3 that I'd submitted was to give councillors a picture so you can see where it is and what it looks like, really.
no, that's the bathroom place.
Just get those printed, Chair.
Bristol's the frames years ago.
I think you need to see these photos.
I'll do that next.
Especially the back.
Yeah. Can I only
Back one.
just shut the meeting down for now and restart again as soon as we got these filters so we can see which people are sent in. Must apologise that we ain't got them. I only knew I was on this committee late last night, so I didn't read any emails late last night about this committee because I wouldn't have been on it. So if we can ask our committee secretary to run them off if possible.
Yeah, we'll do.
Really, and we'll come back in how long do we want?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, so we come back, so that actually take 22, so you've got 7 minutes. Okay, sorry about that, but we can reconvene. Thank you. Well, thank you for that short break. We know we've got our food tools which we're talking about in the committee. We will start again and sorting like you, Gavin, but if you could go through your report again. Thank you.
So on the front page of the photographs, there are two photographs. So the one at the bottom is the one that I mentioned, which has got 91 shown there on the left-hand side of the photograph. So that's what it currently looks like, and that's the sort of image that Dennis is keen to sort of keep with the property. Prior to being to Dennis buying it, it was an art studio, and prior to that, I think it was a very small toy shop. And then before that, it was a cafe, not dissimilar in operation to what Dennis would like to do. And the purpose of putting the other photograph is just to show the offer that there is on St Giles. It is the Upper St Giles, rather. It is a popular place, destination now in Norwich and in the lanes in particular. So it's to give the impression that what Dennis is intending to do is in keeping with that. It will fit with that, and the offer will be in line with what's already there. I have also put in some photographs, the next two photographs, which show the outside area, which is the matter of concern today, I think. So the first photograph is a simple photograph taken from the door. On the left-hand side, you can see some glazed, large glazed windows, which would be a bar area. And the second photograph, so that's the one which has got some skylights on the top right-hand corner. Unfortunately, because it shows some private space, I haven't been able to, I can't share it with you. I think the private space probably belongs to Mark and Dan there. But you can see in the top right-hand corner some astroturf and a loose fence, which is actually a decked garden area. And that the back of that goes on to, if you turn over to the last page, which is the photograph that Anne submitted, you can see the far corner of that garden decked area is in the bottom left-hand side of that photograph. So just by way of orientation, the building on that photograph that I just pointed out, the cream building on the top left, is the rear of 91 Upper St Giles. So between the courtyard, which I've shown you photographs of, and this part of Walpole Gardens, I assume is taken from number 21, but which I will explain, there is a raised garden area, some fencing, and there's a void space which looks like it's got a blue garden shed in it. So there's no direct line of sight into this courtyard from number 21, or indeed from any of the properties at Walpole Gardens, which is actually solid brick walls front onto the back of the properties at Upper St Giles. So, as I mentioned, the issue of concern in this application is purely the licensing objective around public nuisance. Both Dennis as the applicant and myself genuinely appreciate how new businesses coming into an area can feel like a threat to people living in that area. And that's why when we first, Dennis owned this building for some time, first talked about what might be an appropriate licence application, we waited for 3 months to allow for Dennis to speak to neighbours and to let people know what was being intended, so that there were no surprises, and hopefully they could be reassured that what was going to happen there wouldn't disrupt people going about their everyday lives. And there have been many conversations with people who live and work nearby, and the only objection that remains is from Anne, who's the interested party at this hearing. Now, we accept that we were perhaps a bit late in reaching out to Walpole Gardens. The main work with neighbours and businesses nearby was on Upper St Giles Street, and I suppose we didn't really anticipate that Walpole Gardens would be affected in any way for various reasons. First of all, because we're confident that we can control any noise that might emanate from the small outdoor area of the business. And secondly, because the outside area itself, as you can see from the penultimate photograph, it's an enclosed brick wall space. It's enclosed on all four sides with brick walls that are above head height, and beyond the head height towards Walpole Gardens, which is to the far right, there is a 9-foot high fence, which you can actually see in the final photograph, which screens that off. Now, if you look at the last photograph, that's not that fence there is not the one separating the rear of the applicant's premises. That's further down towards the top right, where there's all the foliage, and that fence at that point is covered with a solid ivy hedge and tree, which covers the entire wall and fences. So you can see a bit of it on the photograph that I took looking down into the yard. So it's effectively screened because it's in effect below hearing level of anybody outside, and because it's got soundproofing up to the roof height of any premises on Walpole Gardens. So naively, perhaps, we didn't anticipate there'd be a problem with neighbours in Walpole Gardens, but there has been some dialogue. So Dennis has met Anne before, and maybe Anne will describe how that went. Just to describe what the nature of the business is proposed, so a premises licence will support a cafe and restaurant offer, and that will begin early. So there is an early morning trade on Upper St Giles because it's a popular area for people that are going to and from Norwich into work, and it will start with coffee and light breakfast and moving on to lunches and then evening meals. And the lunches and evening meals will be table service based on Mediterranean menu again. And that will, we believe, will fit in well with other hospitality offers that there are on the street. And covers will mainly choose to sit inside, which will be a lovely decorated space. You've got a glimpse of it. But there will be an option for a small number of customers to sit outside in the enclosed rear courtyard. It will be limited for space. You can see it's quite a small space, but the offer is to enhance the building and the courtyard and its natural offering by allowing people to enjoy outside space. There isn't going to be any music, there won't be any sound transmitted through vibration, and the sound that there is from this area will be from the voices of diners who choose to enjoy their food and drink outside in this enclosed area. It is a fact, though, that any resident who's got space at the back of the property on Upper St Giles can, and most likely will use their space for socialising. As I say, there's a garden there which is a lot nearer to Walpole Gardens, and the bread source, which is at number 93 Upper St Giles, has its own courtyard garden, which is virtually a mirror image of the one here at number 91 that we're applying for. So the only issue really, because anybody could have it, that's the Upper St Giles is designed with space at the back for people to socialise in. The only issue here really is that Dennis would like his guests to be able to have a drink, and we accept, of course, that this needs to be regulated. And I'll refer to the operating schedule, which has been passed through Norfolk Police and Norwich City Council Environment Protection, who are comfortable with what it says to control public nuisance and to promote that licensing objective. So Dennis has a positive reputation with authorities and a thriving hospitality business, a larger one already on St Benedict Street. There have been no incidents with Hackle Restaurant, and the clientele there are very much self-regulating in terms of how they behave. And Dennis and his staff are vigilant, of course, to make sure that customers don't drink too much. It's a high-quality restaurant. It'd be harmful to the restaurant's reputation if people weren't able to, if people behaved in a raucous way. And Dennis wants patrons to enjoy themselves, to be able to hold intimate conversations while outside of the table. So the standard is high, and it will be the same for the operation at number 91. And finally, some of the things that have been discussed with neighbours, I look forward to hear what Anne's view of this is, but just ways to mitigate any concerns, apart from the fact it is in effect it's a sealed area, it's underground and it's walled, is that Dennis has offered to be proactive in asking for feedback from neighbours. Now, it's very unusual for an operator to give out a personal mobile phone number, but not only has Dennis taken the time and trouble to contact the neighbours and explain what's going on, they know how to get in touch with him. And it normally what happens if people experience difficulties with noise, be a noisy party or anything, they contact the authorities, and there may or may not be resource if it's proportionate to send a response to that, but it's probably unlikely. But residents and neighbours have the personal mobile phone number of a person who's got a business down the road and a business from next door, which is quite a good facility, I suggest. I've mentioned the vigilance from Dennis and his staff to maintain what will be an intimate and peaceful atmosphere, and the facility to react in the unlikely event that somebody calls saying, well, it seems very noisy tonight. There's a facility to do something about it there and then, so no wait there. No smoking anywhere on the premises, which seems unusual, but it's worked fine at Haggle, which again is a much bigger premises. And also consideration of installing canvas roofing, which does mitigate against sound escape, but it would certainly dampen any remaining noise from people's voices going upwards, because that's the only way that noise can get out of this place. So I'll shut up there, I think, and it's probably best to see what Anne's got to say.
Okay, we will move on to Anne, if you'd like to put your objections in. Thank you.
So I'm doing it from my own perspective on Watkins Court, which under our lease, I mean it's a concrete concourse, and under our lease we are not allowed to have any outside entertainment going on, no barbecues, anything, because of the noise that it makes, and therefore we do have quite a very quiet environment. The previous occupant was Carol Lake, and she developed the building, and my own experience is that once, I think, she had a party outside with drinking, and I couldn't open my windows because it was so noisy. Any noise outside reverberates around. Nobody along the back does have any. Nobody uses the back of the property, so this is the only property that does. Source has probably about 3 tables outside that, and people go and have a coffee, maybe half an hour. I don't hear it because it's that far away. That's the other business that does use their courtyard. So that is basically the objection. The objection of having licensed premises outside where people drink, and as they drink they raise their voices. The duration of that licensing that looks as though originally it was even 8 a.m. till 11 on the original, now it's gone to, and that was 6 days a week, now it's gone to 7 days a week to 11:30 at night, which is excessive. It just is excessive for any residential area where it isn't if you move somewhere and it's a pub and it's got a beer garden, but when suddenly you're in a very tightly knit, it's a row of terraced houses which are always very close together, and Watling Court backs onto it. Suddenly to have a licensed premises right next to you is quite a consideration, and so that is the basic kind of worry of having the noise right next door.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I have some other notes, but I won't go on now until.
Oh, you're fine. I think you need to do them now, really.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Thank you.
So basically, I'll go into the meeting that we had, all right, with Dennis. Nothing was agreed. On the original plan, we discussed that there were 9 tables to go out. Originally, he said that the foliage would be kept in place. If you look on the picture, it's full of foliage, and that would absorb quite a lot of the noise. And then he said he would take it away because that would make more room for tables. And he said, oh, well, the 9 tables, I could have put 10 in the picture. So, and 10 seems quite excessive. He did mention putting a roof, and my immediate thought was, Wimbledon and the centre court with a glass roof, and I realise now it could be a canvas roof, which would slope down to where the edge of 89. So it would be like a sloping roof, which presumably would be permanent, because otherwise it would create a noise if you didn't have anything at all. I think that probably covers it. There are precedents I know where, like Redwell Brewery, they had to reduce their noise because of surrounding residents in Bracknell Millgate, and that was just one property where they had children and they reduced their licensing hours. So if it does have to go ahead, it would be the reduction of the licensing hours really in a really small area. And there was another one in King Street that actually shut because of, and another one my friend said that was in, I've forgotten the name of it. St Andrews, that totally shut because of the noise from a licensing property. I feel as though I'm protecting, my property, I don't know what the law is. I did find it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think you understand what you're trying to get to and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'll start asking questions now. I'd like just to ask one. I see on your operation schedule there's nothing down about hot food or food. Is that right, Maxine? Well, they were talking about having dinners outside and meals and...
Chair,
Yeah, that's fine. Still, they don't need to late night refreshments because they're past 11 o'clock.
Okay, so we're also thinking about underage drinking and how they will sort that out. They've got nothing in there about asking people under the age of 25 to show identification or under the age of 21. That's just, we will ask people and don't see how you're going to do that. And if you were serving meals, if you're having a meal and you've got a child with you, they can actually drink really young as well if they're having a meal as well. So I didn't know you were doing that.
Sorry,
are you sure?
Chair, would you mind if I answered another question first and then we'll come back to that?
Okay.
Because Anne raised some things that aren't in the application, did she not? So the application for premises opening time is 7:30 to 11. It's not 11:30. I don't know where that's...
Well, it's on the documentation that has just been So there's some kind of casualness.
Some kind of casualness about the licensing, which we really want to reduce to about 6 o'clock.
Chair, I'm sorry, there's no... Could you help Rachel? There's no casualness. It's in the application.
No, but the original one I saw and I objected to was to 11 o'clock, and now it says to 11:30 on that document.
The documents we got and what they're asking for, and if we grant it...
And it said 6 days originally, and now it's 7. Because originally I said on my objection 6 days, and now it's 7 days on there.
7 days, and they're asking for 8 in the morning to 10:30.
For sale of
Where
alcohol.
does that say?
For sale of alcohol, Chair.
Right.
It's 8 o'clock till 10:30 for sale of alcohol, and the hours of operation are 7:30 to 11.
Okay.
But that is excessive in a residential area till 11 o'clock at night. We really want it to be like 6 o'clock, that's fair enough in the afternoon, but just to 11 o'clock is a very long time. If you're disturbed, I go to bed at 9 o'clock and try and sleep, you know.
Jen, would it be helpful if I you asked a question about service of meals and children who might have a drink with a meal? I mean, Dennis is the best person. You've probably experienced that. Some children would come into haggle. How is that dealt with, please?
So all our staff are trained. We go for 20. If you look under 25, then we will ID you. So and we've got no flexibility on these rules, and we in fact get few customers complain about that because we asked them about their children's ID, and they didn't have it. They tried to say, okay, I'm their father or mother, I can't just guarantee they're 18. So this is very black and white for us. So if anyone that we believe look under 25, we have to ID them, and we are doing it on a daily basis. And we have got different area in the restaurant, so more close to the bar area. When even customers request the bar, if we see there are some underage or children that will be on that table, we will straight away move their table somewhere else. We're trying to keep away from them to just basically make sure that that area is protected. So we are monitoring that.
So you actually offer it up to put under 25?
Sorry?
In operation?
Challenge 25.
Challenge 25.
Challenge 25. We have got that. We have got that on our door as well. So
it's not actually in. So you don't have to do it if we grant it as it is. So you give it up to under 25 in here.
Yeah, of course, under 25 is allowed because the restaurant is not a bar or it's not a pub. So they're allowed. They come with their family. So, but. Not always, but if anyone on that table, if there is someone that we think they are underage, and therefore we will ask for their ID, and all the servers are trained for that, and they will ask.
Thank you. Leslie?
So, from what you've just said, are you offering Challenge 25 as a condition?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I also had a problem about... Gavin mentioned sightlines as being an issue, but I think the issue is not sightlines; it's sound lines. And the sound of a pub is very different to the sound of a cafe, and I haven't quite. I'm not quite certain whether alcohol is being served to anybody who comes in or just with meals, and I think that would make quite a difference to the sounds, because the sounds that, if people aren't getting drunk, they're not going to be as noisy. If they're drinking with food, that's kind of quite a different kind of neighbour to if people are just coming in for a drink or few. Also, on the pictures, there's a picture with the AstroTurf garden in it, and I think that's private to the upstairs of the building, but just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, that is private. That's a sort of decked garden area. It belongs to the gentleman next door. That's private space. In relation to the behaviour and the sort of demographics of customers and what they're there for, it's a food-led offer. It's fine dining in effect. I mean, it's going to be different when it's in the morning because it's a coffee bar. So people will come in and have meals. If there's somebody in that party who, for whatever reason, doesn't want to eat, they could just have a drink. But people are booking tables to eat, so it's a restaurant.
So could you book a table and just drink? Or could you turn up and just drink? Or is food only served if a person or most of their party is eating.
I mean, when people book the tables, they will book and they will come, as Gavin mentioned. So sometimes they will have dinner, sometimes they will just come, one won't have dinner. So usually it's for diners, so we open a restaurant, so we're not advertising as a bar. But if there is a couple of people finish their dinner somewhere else and come for a quick cocktail, we will do that. But we are not designing or opening a pub. They're not going to come. We are not going to have beers on tap for customers to just consume. So it will be maybe one or two drink if they want to, but again that will be monitored by the staff or myself. So when we know that drink is excessive, and currently I'm doing that, as soon as they walk through the door, we had a few disagreements with customers, so they don't, if we believe they had one too many elsewhere and they come for a dinner, we will tell them from the beginning we won't serve any alcohol because it will ruin the experience for themselves and for the rest of the customers. And they've got a choice to leave or basically go with the rules. So.
Thanks. My question was about the bar area as well. I'm looking at the plan at the moment. I can see the table area where people will be dining, and then you go through that sort of opening, and then there's the bar at the back there with the bar stools. It looks like bar stools at the bar. Have you got that? That's on page 24. I was just looking at that, and I just could do with just a little bit more clarification about that area. Sort of, you mentioned people perhaps coming early for a cocktail. I don't want to put words into your mouth really, but I just would like you to describe the function of that bar area a little bit more, please, and what sorts of drinks would be served. Thank you.
Thank you. So the bar area, all the seats that you see, I know the bar plan is not a scale, which is basically, it's going to be a little bit longer from the bar side. So the kitchen is going to be there and the bar as well. So main focus of that people will dine at the bar. I do go to a few places in London, and although they've got a bar and the drinks are served in one side, but the whole thing is actually a kitchen, so people can see all the cooking. There will mainly be for people who come in for dining. So our first and most priority to book those seats for diners. And as I said, if they like the atmosphere, if they want to carry on after their dinner, they can, obviously, depending on the allowed time for their duration, so they can have drinks as well. But it is not just for people to come, and the priority is not for the drinkers, priority is for the diners to come and dine. And because of the size of the space, we have to use these for diners to be able to make the numbers in terms of basically clear all the costs. So it is dining at the bar, actually.
Thank you for that clarification. And where it says kitchen, did you say that that's the kind of open plan kitchen, so the diners will be able to see the cooking going on to some extent?
That's right, yeah. So it's going to be open plan kitchen. Where it is exactly, I don't know, we have an internal picture, so the original kitchen was there, so it's going to stay there, and the most of the cooking is going to be there. We have got small area in the basement that's going to be main prep and other cookings and cleaning, so the kitchen on the side of the bar is going to be main focus. It's not going to be a huge menu as big as what we're doing right now. It's going to be a smaller menu, probably selection of a few dishes. And then the rest of it is going to be basically part of the kitchen and bar, all going to work together. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just ask one about serving people? Again, the courtyards can really be understood in the summer, really, because if it's cold and rain and stuff, people will want to eat inside first before they get forced to go outside. This cover you're going to put on the top, is it going to be light in there, or how do you secure this for not flapping about and making a noise like?
So we've got a couple of options. We have already got the large commercial umbrellas, which covers the entire yard on 2 umbrellas, or we are looking at option awning that it can come out when it's maybe mainly in the dark and bring all the light as well with that. So we have got some option to do that, and I think considering that how much rains we get even in the summer, so I think it will be sensible for the business as well. We don't, we will have to have that, because once we book tables inside and outside, then we have to provide some sort of cover to keep the customers in case of the bad weather condition. Otherwise, then we won't have space for them to come inside. So yeah, we will do definitely with the lighting, obviously ambient lighting, not going to be disturbing others, so enough for people to be able to move around.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay.
Looking at the plan again, I was wondering, before the meeting this morning, whether the tables were for illustrative purposes or whether that's the exact number. But if you could just clarify how many covers that is outside, that would be great. Thanks.
It was illustrative purpose, so we put that how it's going to look like. That would answer the question of earlier when we had the meeting with Anne and Mark and Dan. Her question was how many you're going to have, and I counted 18, and I said it was there. Obviously, I haven't seen it for a long time. I said maybe it's going to be less, maybe it's going to be more, but it's just going to be suitable whatever space we've got in the courtyard. But I've also explained that it's not just going to be tables. We're going to have the service area, the clearing the plates, and somewhere that obviously store all the necessary for the trays, just service station. So after that, I said it will be clarified, but I don't think it will be a lot more than what he saw. And we once we design and put the tables, and we have to do some movement with the plants. At the moment it's full of plants, and I did not say that we're going to move the foliage on the wall, so that is definitely staying, but everything else on the floor that which is covering the space for the tables, they will move. Even there was Anne's suggestion that we should do something about it. That looks horrible as it is, because I said yes, we are going to do something, obviously, to be able to gain some space. But the barrier or the ivy on the wall will definitely stay there.
Yes.
I was going to ask about the foliage too, because keeping the foliage is going to improve the experience of your diners as well as your neighbours. And I wonder if there's a way of increasing the foliage without taking up space for everybody's benefit.
I mean, the back is completely covered. The only side that we might need a little bit more foliage, it will be our next door neighbour, Mark and Dan, but that would be their view and permission. But if they agree with that, we are happy to invest on that side as well, without blocking their skylights, so it can be, on that side as well. But I believe Dan and Mark also have something in the summer, kind of camouflage to cover the whole area, or railing, which is overlooking our garden. So, and being a fabric as well, I think that they will be observing for the sound as well for that.
When we were talking about the fence at the back there and the ivy and the foliage, there was some talk of soundproofing. I just wanted to clarify if the soundproofing is indoor soundproofing, if it's in the actual premises rather than soundproofing that's outside. Thanks.
Yeah, that was term and phrase. Soundproofing it will come with the foliage, with the natural surrounding brick wall, which is above head height, the screen, the fence and the foliage creates soundproofing. There's nothing physical to add, like material. That's what we meant by soundproofing.
Okay. Can I just ask a question to Lois and operator? Anne has said that, according to her, that was only going to open 6 days a week to 11 o'clock, now it's open 7. Has this changed, or have it always been 7 and she read a blog?
It hasn't changed. This is the actual application we received and served. That is the times are correct, is what we received.
Okay, so when she put her objections in, Did anyone get back to her to say she's put 6 instead of 7 or?
No, I didn't. I mean, this application was on the website as well, so
Yeah,
it's
okay.
there to view, so nothing's changed or no new application.
Thank you.
If the licence were to be granted, if the courtyard were operated on slightly reduced hours from the rest of the building, would that go some way to meeting the objections, and would it work for you?
The short answer is, I'm sure it would go some way to meeting objections. You'd have to ask Anne that rather than us. But the business involves the building, and the courtyard is part of this business. And what we're trying to do is explain how the operation outside, which I think is the one of concern, we'll be doing things to protect from public nuisance.
Okay, any more questions? Okay.
We were going to ask about CCTV, weren't we? Yeah. We were talking about the CCTV part. I wonder if I can find which page that's on.
Page 17.
It was about, it's on page 17, prevention of crime and disorder at B. Would it perhaps be more prudent to have the capacity to view it's going to be available for the licensing authority on request, whether that could be within 24 hours rather than 30 days? We were just discussing about tightening that up a bit, I think, weren't we? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Again, the short answer is we've cutting it off. The short answer is we consulted with the police over this, and they were happy with that condition. So if the police are happy with it, well, you know, we wouldn't offer something that the police didn't want necessarily. That's what they asked for.
Anything else? Solicitor, anything?
Chair, would it be possible for me to ask Anne just a couple of brief questions?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think you've eloquently described, I mistakenly called it Walpole Gardens. I do apologise, what things called.
Right, I thought you were referring to
yeah, I beg your pardon.
Wellington Street.
I beg your pardon, so that was my mistake. But you've described it, I think you've described it like a concrete block community.
Yeah, it's all, the concourse is all concrete, and as I said in my objection, any noise, sorry, yeah. So it's flashing green.
Oh, that's yeah. So in my original, it's a concrete concourse. As in my original objection, we actually in our lease, we aren't allowed to have any kind of assembly outside any of the flats, including barbecues or anything, because of the noise that it makes, and it disturbs everyone else. That's what it is.
Okay,
yeah.
So the reason it's a bit of a loaded question, so forgive me for that, but because that's what things called.
Yes.
But Upper St Giles has its own built environment, and that includes rear space, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's been there probably a lot longer than what is called, if we're honest.
Yeah, and we're all residences.
So is it fair to say that noise coming from the back of any of the outdoor spaces behind Upper St Giles is actually dependent on the goodwill and lack of selfishness of the people living and running businesses there?
Basically, yes, I can hear sometimes the crockery from Roger Hickman. I've had a problem in the past with an ex-Bella fan from Roger Hickman. I had to, in the event, there was a health and safety issue, and he refurbished it all, and I think now I don't hear it, and he has some kind of reduced noise fan.
So I think, forgive me, but I think you're saying yes, it is dependent on the goodwill of the people.
It wasn't a goodwill. It was actually he had to do it, but I had to make an objection, a noise pollution, or whatever you call it, to the council on it. Other people don't seem to. So my neighbours number 89, I don't hear them. No, it's, and I don't, basically I can't hear Source. I don't know whether any other neighbours do. There are very few. I mean, the issue is more, apart from the hours, as well as the noise rising, because being high up I can hear it. The other thing is like the duration and of what would be clatter from plates and noise from drinking and raised and voices being raised as people drink. If you look at the plan on Upper St Giles, there are very few areas really that could be used. For instance, must be an old plan, because at the back of me there is a building. They've actually made a building coming out of the back, and I never know what it is. But that's not used as an outdoor space anyway. Then there's 89, and I don't hear whether they're two people who are resident who might go out in the garden for some reason. I wouldn't probably hear them at all. And then you're talking the difference really between people who use their residences as just going out and using it as a garden, and a property that's being used as a business with more than would be people who would normally live in the property. So, for instance, Carol Lake, I would never have heard her because there were two people living there, unless there was a party. And as I put in my objection, people have parties. We have them in Watling's Court, and I might hear them next door. I've got students next door, and I would just ignore them for the evening because it's freshman week. So, and it's a one-off. But this is every night. So that's the objection.
Right. Okay. Just come back to you. You saying
well, just start a question.
Yeah. Okay.
This is your application, it's your premises.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't really work that way.
I'll leave it at that.
That's fine. Listen.
I just wanted to ask Anne if she had any questions for the applicant, since we allowed the applicant to question her.
We did have a prior meeting, and so the question still is, do you still have to have serve drinks after 6 o'clock and serve food after 6 o'clock in the courtyard every day? I mean, that's the issue, I think, is it? I'm sorry, I'm asking someone who's not allowed to speak.
It's up to you. You want to answer that? You don't have to. It's up to you.
Yeah, that is the application. I'll cover that if given the opportunity to sum up at the end. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Have you got questions?
Yes. The agent pointed out that there's good liaison, that there's some kind of liaison between the applicant and neighbours can contact the applicant. I just wonder what that experience is when you do contact them. You said earlier there was contact but nothing was agreed, so could you say how that went?
Okay. I do have an issue with how this, and I think it's the law, where a sign goes up on the window of a property and saying this is what's going to happen, you have to apply within 28 days. My friend from Trowse just happened to pass by and say, look, what they, and I read it. It was 2 days before the application had to go in. And so my friends were in Thailand at the time. I happened to catch them as they came back, and they couldn't find it on the website to object, so their objection hadn't gone in. And so really the only time that we did it was one meeting where I don't have anything to do, because in Watling's Court I don't really have anything to do. They know each other more in Upper St Giles than I do, because a lot of people know each other. And as I understand it, yeah, Dennis had been talking to people on Upper St Giles. I do know from previous, I do know some people. I know the people in the pantry, blah blah blah, and I know Mark and Dan. So, but not many other people. But it was only just one meeting we've had. Yeah.
Right. Yes, there's a lot of talk of goodwill and what is clearly a close knit community, if not in agreement, but in terms of all being in the same space. And earlier, Dennis, you said that neighbours have your personal phone number for feedback and complaints. I was just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. How far does that go? Can people get hold of your number? Are you willing to? I mean, I don't know how many people that comprises. So if you could just expand on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Obviously, when we decide what we were going to do, I knew Dan and Mark by obviously dealing with Carol Lake, who designed my current restaurant. But after we purchased the properties, and my first thing is just make sure that you're a good neighbour. I always want to be a good neighbour. I will always cooperate with my neighbours. It happened that myself and Mark bumped on the street. We had a quick conversation, and he mentioned that they are going to Thailand, and that was the time we were actually preparing our application. So I said we need to speak about something, because the timing, Gavin said that he's going to put the application, it was going to be duration when Mark and Dan were going to be on holiday, and I invite them to 91. I give them the full picture of the license and we apply, and Carol Lake was also there as well, because she's going to also be involved in designing this. She has already done a lot, but she's going to carry on with finalised in 91. So we had a very good meeting with Dan and Mark. I think it's a real shame they can't speak right now, but I think they would agree that. And I think there was a healthy conversation. The reason I speak to Mark and Dad directly, because they are close neighbours. Not only the sound, also that we can see each other from our courtyard. I thought that's only fair for them to know directly, rather than getting letters, and it's all confusing, because it was a great meeting, and they thanked me with the message, and they gave me reassurance, and they were happy with everything that I've done. I did have a message from Mark and Dan when they're back from Thailand, and he explained that one of the neighbors said that obviously pointed Anne that she's got concern, and I replied. I said, of course, I'm happy to meet up with Anne. You can join the meeting as well, and obviously if there is any other question, I'm happy to answer, and then we can find the middle ground and just make sure. And my first, I think I put that on a text message. Rather than have a good business, I'd rather have a good neighbour. So the good business doesn't really work if you haven't got good neighbours supporting your case. And when you walk in and walk out from your premises, that positive energy, it just basically takes you another level. So that's always been a motto, that I have to be a good neighbour first. I try to explain. Obviously, I understand Anne was angry about the situation, and I wait and ask for the suggestion. And she said, get rid of the outside completely. I've listened, and I've offered different things. Maybe the coverage and the foliage, or we can. And I said, you can speak to me anytime if there is any issues, then we can talk. I said, if your calls have been ignored or messages been ignored, of course, then you can go to authorities that, they've got power to take my license away if there is actually any public nuisance that has been ignored by myself as an operator. I think she was happy with the outcome, what I was offering, but she still suggests that we come to meeting, which I respected. I think is for best. But not just here. The neighbours that I've got on St Benedict Street, they also got my email address, my telephone number. We had a few complaints about the noise, and we had to adjust it for the customers, the neighbours, and there were neighbours that would tell me about, our staff behaviour. So without knowing from my neighbours what we are doing wrong, we won't know. So of course we're doing our best to create a perfect business and without disturbing anybody. But I was offering my personal mobile phone and email address, or my personal approach to solve the problems before. Actually, if it's a minor problem, we can sort out between ourselves. And I have given them the reinsurance, and Mark and Dan knows, and also I told Dan as well. So, considering we are in a meeting, so if anything happens, they can always contact me. I don't know if there are any other operators offering that, which I think is, for independent business, I think one of the essential things to do. So, not only personal touch with your neighbours, also with your customers as well. So this is my offering, and I will be there all the time, and I don't think any message has been ignored so far, so I was waiting for them to decide. We had the meeting, and we did have a meeting as well, so yeah.
Thank you.
So Dan and Mark don't have the right to speak, but I'm wondering if there's any legal reason or any objection if we actually invite them to.
Well, I don't think so. Yeah, too far. Is there any more questions to the applicant? No, happy? Solicitor?
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Did you want to make a closing statement? Or you should grant the licence?
Yeah, I've got one more thing to add. I mean, since Anne mentioned about the Carol's parties, when we first spoke, she mentioned about the parties happening with Carol. So I did question Carol, saying, how many parties did you have? She said she did have one party, that was during the Norwich Lane Festival, and obviously everybody was out and partying, so she did agree that it was, one party she had. Maybe it was, quite loud, but it only happened once on that scale that Anne was mentioning. It was during the Norwich Lane Festival on that day.
Okay, did you want to make a closing statement?
Thank you. Keep it very brief. So there has been a most thorough consultation over this application. I'm starting to think that the reason why Anne was confused about the hours is because it's been going on for some time, and it was pre-application that those hours were talked about rather than application. But that's not why we're here, and we're sticking with the hours that are on the application there. What hasn't been mentioned is consultation with businesses. I showed you the pictures on Upper St Giles. I think, Dennis, most of the businesses there, be they hospitality or otherwise, and they have also been involved in this consultation. It has been a thorough consultation. The nearest residents of the premises have to be sitting here. You'd expect them to be most likely to be concerned. They aren't. They haven't made a representation. Dennis has a track record, we should try to describe it, and he's, I think, put it very eloquently, as a responsible operator, responsive to the views of people living and working nearby, and he said it here, he will stay in touch with neighbours and respond to any concerns to make sure that they remain happy with the business operation. No other interested parties have expressed opposition to this premises licence application. We do hear the one objection from Anne. We've explained how the licensing objective, the only one that's affected, I think, is public nuisance will be promoted, and our statement is it would not be proportionate to, or actually reasonable to do anything other than grant this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. If I could ask everyone to leave now while we debate and decide upon an application, and we'll invite you back in when we make our decision. Okay, thank you very much for waiting while we did our what we're going to do. Can I just say that we have listened to what everyone has said today and read through the reports and pictures, which I'm glad you told us about as well, which we got. And it's now read out our agreed stance. The Challenge 25, which you offered up, will become in the agreement. CTV, we will put a condition in that if that's asked for by the police or a licensing authority, you need to give that up within 24 hours if it's asked for. The operational programme from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, we put a condition on that you shut at 9 in the outside area. Inside area will stay the same. Friday and Saturday, that will stay the same as you asked for. I think that was all. Okay, anything else? And they have 21 days to appeal one way or the other.
So that's the decision. You have 21 days to appeal against the decision. So the decision is that the application has been granted on that basis with all that conditions. All right? And either the applicant or the objectors can appeal against the decision, but you would be given a written decision letter with the reasons. Right?
Okay, thank you very much. That's the